Awesome, awesome. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight for this workshop on access to capital. This is by far my favorite workshop because part of this workshop is not just talking about how to get the money, but how to be strategic in being able to tap into funding for your business. Most people, when they apply for funding, they just go to a lender, get a checklist, fill out the application, and then submit all the documents. But when you do take that approach, it's out of your control. You put the control into the hands of the lender. With the process that I'm going to talk about today, where you become strategic in pursuing funding, you are going to take control of this process. You're going to control your destiny. You're going to put yourself in the best possible position to get approved for funding, but not just any funding, but funding that is a fit for you. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and before I get started, are there any questions that anyone has before I get started? It's going to be, like I said, a really good presentation. Also, I have business cases at the end. I have 4 business cases of 4 businesses that I've supported in the city of Detroit and helped get funding. And I'm going to put you guys in the shoes of these business owners and allow you to tell me which funders are best fit for each of these business cases. And by that time, you will hear about the different funders that are available, what the criteria is, and you'll be able to identify them. Now, we do have some people that are joining us tonight who are not from Detroit. So note, this presentation is not exclusive to Detroit-based businesses. The same strategy that I'm going to teach you tonight to apply for funding is the same strategy you would use with any micro lender or CDFI, what we call community lenders, or banks. The exact same strategy. But I'm going to be using some Detroit lenders as examples of lenders that would lend in this space. So are there any questions before I get started? We are recording this, so if you know someone who might want to listen to this video, or if you want to listen to it again or view it again, you will be able to do so. So let me go ahead, let me get started, Dan. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Let me bring up the share screen. There you go. Okay, the presentation is called Accessing Capital Presentation. As I mentioned before, this is my favorite presentation. I love giving this presentation because at the end of it, you have a complete appreciation for the steps that I'm going to talk about that will make a difference in you being able to access capital. Some of the names I see on here that are on this call, I know, and I know some of you are pursuing funding, and I think this presentation will help you get over the hump. If you have any questions, we do have somebody that's reviewing questions in the chat room. Go ahead and put it in the chat room, and we will definitely get a response back to you on your question. Let's get started. A little bit about me. It's difficult for me to talk about myself, but just to give the audience a chance to be able to get a perspective on who I am. My name is Warren Galloway. I am the owner of Warren Galloway and Associates, which is a small business consulting firm. I worked 14 years as an executive level banker. Between that and me going into business for myself, I have about 25 years of supporting small businesses. I actually started working with small businesses my last semester as an undergrad at Central Michigan University, where I worked with a mobile home company in the city, where I wrote a business plan for this mobile home company because they had competition across the street. Unbeknownst to me, 20-something years later, I would tap into that experience and write my first business plan and become a professional business plan writer. While in banking, I worked in several key positions at several pretty large banks. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of E-Trade. That was one of the foremost online banks. Charter One Bank, which is now considered to be, what is the name of the new, it's a new bank here now. Wow, I can't think of the name of it right now, but Charter One Bank, Citizens Bank, that's what it is. It's now Citizens Bank. Standard Federal Bank, which is now Bank of America. I used to work for them. MBD Bank, which is now called Chase Bank. Worked in a number of capacity positions at these organizations. I did regulatory affairs, compliance, CRA, mortgages. Worked in the retail branches. That where I started as a management trainee. Currently, in addition to my own small business firm, I work as a capital strategist with TechTown Detroit. I've been there, it'll be 6 years in October. I'm actually one of the senior people there. I earned my bachelor's degree in marketing from Central Michigan University in 1988 and a Juris Doctorate degree from Western Michigan University Cooley Law School in 1996. It's hard for me to say Western Michigan University because Central Michigan and Western were rivals, so I won't repeat Western's name again. Let me keep going. I am the founder of the first National Microloan Conference, which is what I consider to be the premier networking conference for entrepreneurs to be able to interact with those who can fund their business, like microlenders, community lenders, banks. I am going to announce later on the 2022 conference. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on. I am the author of 6 business books, and actually it says I've published 10 books. Actually, I've published 12 books total. 6 of them business books. I've written books on microloans, how to successfully apply for microloans, which is my favorite book, which is where the majority of this presentation is coming from. It's coming from that book. And if you want to know more about me personally, I do have a personal website called Warren. The domain name is warrengalloway.com if you want to go on there and learn more about me. Any questions about my background? Okay, let me keep going. So I'd like to start the presentation and talk a little bit about something called capital stacking. A lot of people don't understand what that is, but what capital stacking is in our world, working with entrepreneurs, not only in Detroit, but throughout Michigan, across the country. Capital stacking means you have multiple funding resources at the table to fund your capital need. So for instance, if you need 100,000, what we found from the fallout of the economic crisis that we had here in the US in 2008 is that a lot of funders do not like to be the sole funder for your business. So, and a lot of it was caused really from the mortgage industry, the fallout from the mortgage industry. But what we found is that as the economy improved, you found that lenders are saying, okay, this is great, I want to support you, but who else is going to be at the table? We don't want to take on 100% of the risk. Okay, and so this whole thing called capital stacking really kind of came into play as a scenario, meaning that instead of having one lender providing you 100,000, you might have one lender provide you 50,000, another lender provides you another 50,000. Now you have 2 lenders at the table, and you've done something called capital stacking. You're stacking your capital to meet your funding need. We see all the time this capital stack involving sometimes 3 or 4 lenders. I'm working with a business owner right now that we did a capital stacking deal, and all of his loans are in loan committee right now. But he has, let's see, 1, 2, 3 lenders at the table. In theory, he has 4, but this 4th lender has a special program where they provide collateral for the other lenders. So it's a unique program. So they got 4 lenders at the table to fund their deal. Their deal is about $250,000. So we call that capital stacking. So if you hear me say something about capital stacking, then you will know that that just means multiple funding mechanisms. Now, they don't always have to be loans. They can be grants. They can be crowdfunding. It can be your own capital. And we'll talk a little bit more about those funding mechanisms as well. Any questions about this slide before we move forward? Okay, let's keep moving. So I talk about the definition of capital stacking. Basically, it says loan stacking is when a borrower has multiple loans outstanding at the same time. And that's really what it is. But why do capital stacking? Because we know a lot of banks now are not willing to do 100% of the deal, what it would allow you to do, it allows you the flexibility to bring multiple lenders to the table, to meet multiple needs. Let me give you an example. So when you are opening up a new business, you're going to need money to build out the space. We're talking about a brick and mortar business. But then you might also need some working capital. When your doors open, you need to be able to tap into some additional funding. So you can get one lender that will do the build out for you, fund the build out, and then another lender to fund the capital stacking. It just gives you immense flexibility to be able to do these things. If you have one lender at the table and they didn't do a line of credit for working capital, then you're just stuck with a term loan. No, you have flexibility. Also, it helps you improve your credit. You have multiple lenders at the table. If you make your payments on time, guess what? You're gonna have multiple positive transactions on your credit report. So it improves credit. And then finally, capital stacking is just another way to support your growth. You need money, you can bring multiple funders to the table to fund the amount that you need. And it just allows your business to grow if you're an existing business. Any questions about this definition? Looks like somebody has a question, Kevin. See the chat room?
No questions in the chat room.
Okay, great. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the things about capital stacking is you have to let all the participants in your capital stack know that they're all going to be participating. And what I mean by that is, don't let everyone know who's at the table. Don't hold back any secrets. And one of the reasons why you want to do that is you don't want any surprises, because part of this process, when we talk about with microloans is really built upon trust with your lender, that microlender. And so they need you to be open and honest about, okay, you're applying for funding with us, but is there anybody else that you're applying for funding for? And as you can see, number one, I talk about you develop trust, you develop credibility, okay? The worst thing that can happen to you is that you don't tell them about another lender that's part of your capital stack, and they find out about it later on. Before they close on the loan, they might stop the closing. After they close on the loan, they might rescind your loan because your debt ratios will be higher because you got this other loan. It's okay to tell all the lenders about who's at the table and that you're applying, because you don't want to have any type of surprises. Now, what's another reason why you want to do that? Well, most lenders know each other, okay? So where that can help you out is, hey, if one lender, and I use like Detroit Development Fund, knows about Prosper Us Detroit, which is a micro lender, they might say, hey, can we share your loan packet instead of you having to submit everything again to Detroit Development Fund. And in addition, they might even share the credit report that was ran on you. So now you have one less ding on your credit because the lenders knew each other and have worked together and are willing to share that package. I talk about that on number 3, you can share that package. Number 4, I talk about you can share the credit. But more importantly, and this is where it's important to talk to a business coach. Some of these lenders can provide technical assistance support to you. What is technical assistance? Technical assistance can be if you need some accounting support, if you need some marketing support, if you need a website built. Some of these lenders have money where they can pay for those things for you. Okay, so if one lender knows you're at the table and then there's another lender at the table, they can communicate with each other and say, hey, we can cover these things for this business owner and you cover the other things for the business owner. And most of this is free. They have money to pay for services for you. If you need QuickBooks, which is probably the most popular bookkeeping software, they might buy you a version of it. If you need a website, I know at Tech Time, we've done stuff where we've built websites for small businesses. And so they might build a website for you free of charge. So uh, I just want to go back. It's important to notify all the lenders at the table, who's at the table, and if you're going to move forward with an application to apply for funding, because there are a lot of positives that come out of it. But if you don't tell them, it can be a big negative, and that can prevent you from getting your funding. Any questions about this capital stacking and the importance of communicating to the lenders that other people are at the table?
Brother Warren, you do have a question in your chat.
Go ahead.
Does each loaner know the role of the other in the agreement you have with them?
Well, they're going to be sharing that information. So you tell lender A that lender B is at the table, and these are the terms that they're looking at, and these are the terms the other lender is looking at, and then you just connect the two of them. Another, and I didn't talk about this, and I probably need to put this on the list. Probably the sixth reason that, which means this is a good question because it triggered my memory, is that there's going to be something called a lien position. When you apply for some money, they're going to put it, they're going to ask for collateral, and we'll talk about that. But there's a lien position that they're going to take with any collateral that you might have for your loan. And typically, the lender that gives you the most money gets first lien position. And so the lenders have to communicate anyway to talk about, okay, where do we stand with our lien position? Our loan is bigger than yours, so we should be first. But the great thing about the entrepreneurial ecosystem, at least here in the Detroit area, is that lenders are very flexible sometimes. And so if you have a bank at the table as a lender, banks always want the first lien position, always and every time. So, but if the bank did not provide the largest amount of the loan, the other lenders are like, well, you didn't provide, we have greater risk than you. But you know what? Some of these micro lenders and CDFI community lenders are willing to take a lower lien position because they got support from the philanthropic community to take a higher risk to lend money in the community. So they'll say, okay, bank, your loan amount might be less than what we're lending, but we're going to let you get first position, and we'll take second and third position, depending on how many funders you have at the table. That's why it's important for them to know who's at the table, so they can discuss lien position. If you never tell them about another lender where they're going to find out about you applying for funding through somebody else, is when they all try to file that lien against you and they find out someone else has already filed that lien. That can create a lot of headache for you because they could recall that loan because you were not truthful enough front with them. Hopefully that answered the question for whomever it is that asked that question. Any other questions before we move forward? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna spend a little time here on this chart. And like I was saying before, we have guests on here who are not from Detroit, but I'm gonna use Detroit micro lenders as an example for this presentation. But what you're gonna learn today, which is the most important slide, I believe is 1 or 2 slides after this. What you're gonna learn today, you can use in any community that you live in when it comes to applying for funding. So let's talk about some of the top micro lenders and community lenders and banks in the Detroit area. The first one, Detroit Development Fund. Detroit Development Fund is what we call a CDFI, which stands for Community Development Financial Institution. There are hundreds of CDFIs across the country in every community, and their sole purpose is to get resources into the community. So if there's not a Detroit Development Fund down in Atlanta or Texas, but there is a partner CDFI that's down there in those communities who will also lend to business owners. 2, Prosper Us Microloan. Now, Detroit is blessed because we have multiple micro lenders in our city who lend to Detroit-based businesses. So Prosper Us Microloan, they lend up to $50,000. Let me go back up to Detroit Development Fund. So since Detroit Development Fund is a CDFI, they lend more than what a micro lender would lend, which is a max of $50,000, but typically they lend less than what a bank would lend. So the hierarchy, when we talk about lending, goes like this. banks will lend much larger amounts, and then you'll have the CDFIs, and I interchange using the word CDFI, community lenders, and then you have micro lenders. Micro lenders lend $50,000 or less, so they lend a much lower amount. Whereas the gap filler is the CDFI, and then the top lender would be a bank or a financial institution. So, number one, Detroit Development Fund, they are a CDFI. Number two, Prosper Us Microloan, that is a micro lender. Then you have number three. Number three is a really, really good loan program. It's one of my favorites. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about this program because they have similar programs across the country for those of you who live in other states. This is an energy efficient loan program, okay? Let me tell you what the benefits are of getting a loan through Michigan Saves. And their website address, I believe, is michigansaves.org. For those of you who want to take a quick look at the program. What I love about this program, it's a phenomenal loan program for those businesses that are opening up brick and mortar, that have a lot of equipment and lighting, anything that uses electricity, okay? And how does this program work? Well, the way the Michigan Saves program works, they try to help you maximize your business being energy efficient, okay? They try to help you out. They want to be as energy efficient as possible. So what are the benefits of that? Well, with this program, being energy efficient, if you maximize the energy efficiency, because they have you work with contractors to look at everything in your space and all the equipment and lighting and everything that you have to maximize energy efficiency, it buys down your interest rate. Right now, if you maximize your energy efficiency in your space for your business, the interest rate is 0% right now. Hear me, 0% interest on this loan if you maximize your energy efficiency. That's lower than the bank. You can't beat that. Plus, what I love about this program, you literally can find out if you submit everything that they request, and I think everything is uploaded online. If you upload everything that they request for this loan, you might know a declination whether that you're approved by the next day, literally. Now, if you're missing something or have questions about something, that'll prolong it. But if everything is equal and you submitted everything just like they asked you to do, you'll know the next day. So we're talking about quick declination, low interest rate, and then the draws are fairly easy. They work with contractors that they do due diligence on and helping make sure you're energy efficient. So what I typically do is, especially if you're a restaurant, I do a capital stacking deal, and I always make sure Michigan Saves is involved because restaurants have nothing but what? Equipment and lighting, if nothing else. And so they might not fund the entire deal, but they might fund a significant portion. And guess what? Your interest rate is 0%. Any questions about this loan program before we keep moving?
Brother Warren, there's a question. Well, it's an add-on to the last question. Do they all have the same interest rate and repayment terms?
No, they don't. So I'll answer that question when we get to the next slide or slide after that, because one of the things that you're going to inquire about is that, what is your interest rate and what are your terms? So we'll get to that question, okay, Brother Steele? We'll get to that question. Number 4, CIBC Bank. CIBC Bank, the acronym stands for, I think, Canadian Imperial Bank Corp. They're actually a Canadian bank, but I have very few banks understand how to lend in our urban communities. The CIBC Bank gets it, and they're the only true bank that's on here. The reason is because they provide some really nice line of credit products for small business owners, which provide them access to capital. They have different products, and I think the lowest FICO score for one of their line of credits is like 580. So for a bank, that's revolutionary that they have a product that's 580. There are a few other banks now that are coming on board who are getting this. I think Level One Bank has a product now that's a fit. Huntington Bank came out with a product that has a FICO score for a business owner to get a line of credit. So banks are getting it, but CIBC Bank is out there doing it and doing it well. Marcus Jackson is the contact person over there. Number 5, Invest Detroit. Invest Detroit is CDFI, just like Detroit Development Fund. You'll find, at least in the city of Detroit, a lot of the businesses that are opening in our neighborhoods are typically funded by Detroit Development Fund, as well as Invest Detroit. They're highly vested in funding small business owners in the city of Detroit. Then there's LIST, Detroit LIST. That is an organization actually that works more with nonprofits, but they do have a loan product for small business owners. So, you might want to look at them as a potential funding option. Then there's number 7, which is SEED. SEED is a microloan that comes through the Great Lakes Women's Business Council, a statewide agency. They lend up to $50,000. The trick with them is that if you need more than $20,000 from them, they kind of have this quirky requirement, and I call it quirky because you cannot apply for more than $20,000 unless you've been denied by 2 lenders. So you have to have literally 2 denial letters to apply for more than 20%. So that's kind of a quirky thing that I kind of work with entrepreneurs to get around. You know how I get around? I tell them don't apply for more than $19,000 from them, and then we'll get the money from somebody. That way you don't go through that whole process of being turned down and folks running your credit. So then we have number 8, which is Michigan Women Forward. This is an organization that statewide, they lend to women-owned businesses. I joke with them because they told me they do lend to a few men. So, men, don't be afraid, because I've taken some male business owners over to Michigan Women Forward because they have an excellent product, okay? Access. Access is, they have a microloan. They're an organization, social service organization out of Dearborn that work with the Arabic community. But they do a lot of training. They have a microloan for immigrants. They're a really great organization. We've had worked with some really great people over there. So for immigrants, this is a way to tap into some funding for a business. Then we have the Michigan Good Food Fund. Just like its name, Good Food Fund, they support food-based businesses. That's what they do. They are more like a CDFI, like Invest Detroit, Detroit Development Fund, but their sole purpose is to support the food industry, okay? So if you have a restaurant, you might want to take a look at what they have to offer, because when you have a loan fund that focuses solely on one industry, typically not only do they provide funding to you, but they also have resources and coaching and technical assistance geared towards supporting food-based businesses. Then we have number 11, the Biz Loan Fund. The Biz Loan is a loan fund. It's a microloan fund, and they lend up to $50,000. It's actually under the name Detroit Community Loan Fund, but the fund is actually called the Biz Loan. Number 12, First Children's Finance, another statewide lender. Actually, they lend in other states as well. What's special about First Children's Finance? They lend to child care facilities. So if you're going to open up a child care facility, home-based, or child care facility, or a learning center, you want to go with an organization like this who understand your industry and can fund it properly, okay? Then you have the Opportunity Resource Fund, which is another statewide CDFI. Then you have number 14. Now, say you need a little capital, you got a startup business, and you probably need about $5,000 or $10,000 to get started. You might want to check out the Kiva Microloan. We're going to talk just briefly about crowdfunding, but it's a combination of crowdfunding and the microloan. What that means is that if you know, everyone is familiar with GoFundMe. So Kiva is like GoFundMe. You raise money, you have people contribute $5, $10, $20, $100 towards your effort, okay? In this case, towards you opening up your business, okay? But what they do, you don't get the money just as a cash gift, they lend the money to you. And I think the max that you can borrow is $10,000. This microloan fund is managed by Build Institute, but here's another great opportunity for a loan with very low interest payments. The interest rate on this loan is 0%. So you literally, if you need $10,000, you can raise up to $10,000 and get it lent to you at 0% interest. Can't beat that. And then the last fund I want to highlight is the Michigan Employment Loan Fund. That's a loan fund for individuals with disabilities. Most people don't know about this loan fund, but over the years, I've worked with them and I've had clients get this loan fund. So these are 15 lenders that lend not only in Detroit, some lend only in Detroit, but some lend all throughout the state and some lend nationally. So it's important for you to know who these top lenders are, because we're going to circle back on this later on in the presentation. Okay. Any questions about these lenders? Any questions, Kevin?
No questions.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about other resources. Okay. I just talked about loans, but there are other resources out here to fund your business. Okay. The first one, grants. Now, as a result of the pandemic, we are seeing a lot of the information or on grants that are out here. And most of them are called stabilization grants. We're seeing a lot of stabilization grants out here for existing businesses, businesses that have been disrupted or substantially affected as a result of the pandemic. We're seeing these grants out here. Now, one of my favorite questions that I get from business owners all the time who want to start a business, they say, well, do you know any business grants out here for startup businesses? The answer to that is no. I've never seen a startup grant for helping someone start a business. I never have. But if you're an existing business and right now you're affected as a result of the pandemic, you see all kinds of grant funding opportunities out here for business owners. Crowdfunding. I briefly mentioned crowdfunding is like GoFundMe. GoFundMe, Kiva is one of them. There are probably about 100 crowdfunding platforms. It's an online platform to allow you to raise money. Now, most people only associate crowdfunding with someone dying, literally dying, and they need to raise money for a funeral. But it's also used to raise money to help out small business owners. If you have a very strong personal and professional network, crowdfunding might be an option for you, because now you're asking people to fund your idea, fund your business with $5, $10, $15, $20, $100, as opposed to going to someone and asking for 20, 30, 40,000. You just ask a large number of people for smaller amounts, and guess what? You still get that amount that you want, but just in smaller increments. So that's how that works. Another way to raise money for your business is pitch competitions. I think this area is highly underutilized. They used to call them business plan pitch competition. So why pitch competitions? Well, the great thing about pitch competition is that you give a 2 or 3 minute pitch about your business and you could win 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. I've seen large amounts. When we had our first microloan conference, we had a pitch competition. John McCullough was the one that handled that. We gave away $1,000 to Breadless, which is a business that focuses on providing nutritional food served in lettuce, a certain type of lettuce. They won $1,000. I'm excited to say right now they're getting ready to open up their brick and mortar off of East Jefferson in Detroit. Loving it, knowing that we contributed to. They won the pitch competition, and now they're about to not only open, but they're about to hire people from the city of Detroit and provide jobs. That's the impact we want to have from entrepreneurs. Personal equity. Do not come to the table trying to start a business and not have any money into your business. You have to have a personal stake. You have to have what they call skin in the game, okay? So if you're a business owner, expect to put something on the table. If you go to a bank, they might ask that you put 20% on the table. If you need 100,000, they might say, well, we might be able to lend you 80,000, but you got to show us that you got 20,000 at the table. If you're going to deal with a CDFI, a community lender, or a micro lender, they might go with a much lower amount, maybe 5, 10%. It depends. Everybody is different. So don't expect these lenders to 100% fund your business. Okay, let me go back. 100% fund your business. You have to have skin in the game. Now, skin in the game might mean that you can use grant money as personal equity. Every lender is different. You have to ask them, okay, does this have to be cash? But if I got a grant, or if I did crowdfunding, can that count as my personal equity? Those are the type of questions you want to ask those lenders and see if that goes towards your Investors, you have investors to fund your business. I put credit cards on here because I personally know of several businesses, successful businesses that started out with credit cards. It's dangerous because if you have a high interest credit card, you might create debt that you cannot pay back. Those who have used credit cards to fund their business in the early beginning of the business, they typically have good credit and they're paying 0% interest. So be very, very careful about credit cards. Also, there are what they call hiring incentives and tax credits. When a business comes into a low-income community, and I'm gonna give you an example, a Walmart. A Walmart comes into a urban or rural community, they're not gonna come into that community unless there is some type of incentives that are provided to them. Incentives could be tax credits. Incentives can be on-the-job training. What on-the-job training means is that if you hire a certain population to come work at Walmart, the state or the agency that has the on-the-job training money will cover their employee costs, their salary for 30 to 60 days. And then after that, you make a determination whether or not you want to hire them. Those same hiring incentives that large corporations utilize to come into your communities, you as a business owner can tap into it as well. The problem is people don't tell you that. You just hear big corporations getting these tax breaks, but you can get them as well. They are available. If you hire someone who has a disability or a returning citizen or someone who's unemployed, there are state agencies that if you hire those people through them, they will provide you on-the-job training money. Well, they don't provide it to you, but they'll cover that cost. So now you might have someone working for you for 30 or 60 days, and the cost to hire them does not go towards your bottom line. You can use that money towards other things because the state is paying those people. And you said, well, why would they do something like that? One, they want to provide an opportunity to get a job, but two, a lot of the people who are trying to get these jobs, returning citizens, those who are out of work and low income, they don't have any good work experience. So now you're providing good work experience to them. The state is saying, hey, then we'll pay for their salary for you. And then they also offer tax credits. And then finally, and I see it looks like there might be another question, you still have banks out there. Banks are still a legitimate option for you. Just note that their criteria is not for lending is not as flexible as micro lenders and CDFIs, but there's some great banks out there that lend. So do not forget that banks can also lend money to you as well. Any questions before I go to the next slide? Because we're going to spend a lot of time on this next slide because it's the most important slide we're going to go over tonight. Any questions?
There's a question in the chat, Warren. You gonna take a look?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Somebody said, what's the name of the business on East Jefferson?
You mean in terms of, did I make reference to that business on East Jefferson? What was it in reference to?
It didn't say. I will ask.
Was it a business that got funding, got tax credits? Fortunately, I've worked with a whole bunch of businesses up and down the East Jefferson corridor, so I need a little bit more information. That happened to be the area that I'm working to revitalize for Tech Town Detroit. That's why I want to know a little bit more information so I can be specific.
Will DDF use 401k or other securities as down payments?
I don't know. That's a question you would pose to them. So a lot of lenders, community lenders and micro lenders, they don't like owning stuff because unfortunately some businesses do go out of business. I know Invest Detroit, I've worked with them where they've had businesses that went under and they had to sell their assets. And typically I work with them to find other businesses that can buy those assets, like restaurant equipment. Okay, I've had businesses that unfortunately did not make it, and Invest Detroit had to repossess all the business equipment, and then I might be working with another restaurant and say, hey, I need to connect you with someone at Invest Detroit because they have all this restaurant equipment that they're willing to sell at a steep discount to you. And so I have helped out that way, but unfortunately, the nature of the beast, some businesses unfortunately do not survive. Was there another question before we go to the next slide? Because the next slide, this is going to be the game changer. This is going to be the slide that I'm going to teach you how to create a strategy to get the funding that you need, that you take control of this funding process instead of letting the lenders control the funding process. Was there one more question, Kevin, before I go to the next slide?
Yes, they replied back. They said, I think that got funding referring to the East Jefferson business.
Yeah, I've gotten funding. Every business that I've worked with in the East Jefferson corridor, I've helped get funding. Every single one of them. So, okay, here you go. If you're gonna take notes, this is when you want to take notes. This next slide. I wrote a book on this next slide, a whole book on how to successfully apply for microloans. Okay, so this one is called How to Identify the Right Lender. In theory, it's how to form questions to ask each of the lenders that you potentially will talk to. You want to turn these into questions, and I'm going to go through all 14 of these. I created this based upon my interaction with business owners over the years. Some stuff is just very common stuff, but I put this list together of 14 areas that you want to ask questions of a business or of a lender to determine if you should apply for funding. Not just because a lender will lend money to you does not mean that they're the right lender for you. You have to remember that. If someone gives you money, that does not mean that they're the right lender for you. And I'm gonna give you an example of that. And I've seen this before, and man, I've seen some business owners struggle come out the gate because they got approved, and they were excited, but they didn't ask the right questions to see whether that they should get the funding from this lender. So, give an example. Say you're gonna open up a yoga studio, and it's going to take about 2 months to build out the space. So you go apply for funding and you get approved and you get excited like, wow, I got this money, I'm going to build out this studio. Well, part of the terms for this loan is that after you close, now you know it's going to take at least 2 months, and sometimes there's some runover. So it might be 3 months, 2 to 3 months before you can get into that studio and begin to generate revenue by having classes and training. You get approved for this lender. They give you the funding that you need. You get excited. You start doing the build out of your space. But there's one slight problem. Part of the term for that loan is that you have to make your first payment within 30 days of closing. So think about it. 2 to 3 months before they can open, you gotta make your first payment in 30 days. What's wrong with that? You're not generating any revenue. You're making payments on a loan, and you're not generating any revenue to cover that cost. So I've seen business owners who are just so excited about being approved, go ahead and close on that loan, and then find themselves in a precarious situation where they're making payments against a loan when they have no revenue coming into their business. And guess what? They struggle. They struggle. So before they even open their doors, they're struggling. So the question that should have been asked by that borrower is, when is my first payment? And if they say in 30 days, then you should say, well, I don't open up for 2 to 3 months. And they say, unfortunately, this is where our loan program is. You make your first payment after 30 days. If it was me, I would turn down that loan and then go someplace else where someone would understand and allow me to make my first payments after I open my doors, or at least make interest-only payments. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. I saw the chat room light up. I think 2 questions came up.
Yeah, somebody asking for the contact information. I'm assuming the slide, and they sent over the email address.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's. I'm sorry. It's me, Fred. I'm sorry. I'm stuck at work, and I gotta go back to work. And I really did open up a business, and I really do want the information. So I really do. If you could, please send me the info, and thank you.
Yeah. Got it. I'm going to give everybody my email address now because I'm not sure how to go back and grab the information from the chat room when it's over with. My email address is MKD Consulting, Mary Kevin David Consulting, CONSULTING, mkdconsulting@AOL.com. Yeah, I do have an AOL account. I love it. Okay, and no Gmail here. If you want this presentation, I'll email it to you. Okay, I will email this presentation to you. That's how important it is. Okay, thank you for joining us, brother. Okay, so going back to the, there was another question. And John, thanks for putting the email in the chat room. Was there one other question still before I get started on this slide?
Oh, no, that was it.
That was it. Okay, so let's start. Number one. So one of the first things you want to know from a lender, and these are things you're going to ask all the lenders, okay? You might have multiple lenders at the table. If you're doing a capital stacking deal, that means you can have multiple lenders at the table. Guess what? You're going to ask these exact same questions. First thing is, do you offer a line of credit or a term loan or both? Okay? So what's the difference? A line of credit is nothing but like a credit card without a credit card, okay? What a line of credit is good for? Line of credits are good for kind of short-term expenses like employee costs, supplies, utilities, things like that. You tap into it. Usually a line of credit is great for working capital because you need working capital for after you open your doors. What I mean by that is most people get money and say, hey, I just want to get enough money to get my doors open. That's all I want to do. But what they don't realize is that when you open up your doors, it takes a while for your revenue to exceed your expenses. So you're going to have shortfalls, meaning that your expenses are going to be higher than your revenue for however long, whatever projections you put in your business plan. Well, unless you got money sitting in the bank to make up that difference, the best way to handle that is to get a working line of credit, some working capital. And typically that's a line of credit that you tap into when you need it only. Because the theory is if you tap into it and you use it, when you get the money to pay it back, you pay it back because that line becomes available to you again, okay? It's more for short-term expenses, okay? A term loan is typically large equipment, build out of your space. The difference is with a term loan, I'm gonna give you $100,000 at 6% for 60 months. That's a term loan, okay? So if you need a term loan to build out your space, if you need to purchase equipment, you want to know if they offer that, a term loan. If you need a working line of credit, you might want to ask them, do you offer a working line of credit? If they don't offer a working line of credit, you need one. That means that this lender you potentially could get the term loan with, you might have to go someplace else to get the working capital because they don't offer a working capital line of credit. So you need to know whether you need a line of credit or a term loan or both. Number two, the type of business they would lend to. Now remember way back when I went over that list of the different micro lenders and CDFIs and some of the banks, did you know that some of them only lend to certain industries? So if you have an auto repair business, are you going to go to the Good Food Fund to apply for funding? No, because they do not lend to your type of business, okay? The other scenario, when I say type of business they will lend to, so from time to time, certain lenders get a portfolio of too many of a certain type of industry businesses, i.e., you hear this all the time. You might go to a micro lender, you might go to a CDFI, you might go to a bank, and you might be wanting to open up a restaurant. Don't be offended if they say, you know what, our portfolio is too heavy with restaurants. So we're not lending to restaurants right now. Well, guess what? You stop right there. You don't do anything else with that lender because you already know that they don't lend to you. Now you go to another lender. Or if you have an auto repair shop, why waste time going to the Good Food Fund? Okay, why? Because they don't lend to auto repair. They lend to food-based businesses. So number two is, what type of business do you lend to? If they don't lend to your business, you stop with that lender, you go look at another lender. Because part of this, asking these questions is creating efficiency. Because a lot of people get frustrated with this loan process. But if you don't ask the right questions, you might find yourself applying and submitting all this documentation. Then at the end, they say, we can't approve you because we don't lend to your type of business. Duh, you could have did that in the beginning, okay? But part of this is why I'm doing this training, because I need you to ask these questions. And I want this to be a good experience. Running a business is hard enough as it is. Coming out the gate with a headache with the loan process is not the way to get started. Let's go to number three, amount needed. So if you need $300,000, do you go to a micro lender? Maybe, maybe not. Do you go to a bank? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends. The amount that you need could dictate where you go for funding. If you need 300,000 and you're doing a capital stacking deal, and as we talked about earlier, having multiple funding sources to fund your capital need, in this case 300,000, you might have a micro lender as part of the funding. That's 50 up to 50,000, and then now you need to find another 250,000. Okay, now let's reverse that. What if you need $20,000? Do you go to a bank? Do you go to a CDFI? Probably not, because that amount is way too small for them. So now you will go to a micro lender, which lends up to 50,000. I just saw someone had a question.
I didn't see one in chat.
Okay, I thought I saw someone put something in there. So the amount that you need would also dictate where you go. If you only need 20,000, why waste your time going to a CDFI or a bank? Now I can tell you this much because I worked in banking. Banks don't like to turn away people who have good credit. And so what they might say to you is, you know what? You might only need 20,000. Now we don't do business banking or small business lending for that amount. But what I could do is give you a personal line of credit. They do that all day. But your response to that is, no, I want to build a track record for my business. So I need a business loan. Because if I get a business loan, this will show that my ABC business can get capital. And then it goes towards me building a track record of paying back from my business a loan. So banks won't turn you down. They'll just refer you to some personal loan products that they offer. Number 4, geographic location. Now, certain lenders only lend in certain areas. I mentioned a lender called Prosper Us, which is a micro lender. They only lend in certain targeted neighborhoods in Detroit. If I'm using Detroit area, because I know some of you are from across the country, but Wayne County is where Detroit is located. If your business is in Macomb County, if your business is in Oakland County, guess what? A lot of the lenders that I went over earlier don't lend in those counties. So Prosper Us does not lend in Macomb County. The Biz Loan does not lend in Macomb County, okay? So if you ask this question up front, where do you lend? And they tell you they don't lend in the community where you're gonna have your business, you stop right there with that lender. You look for another lender that will lend in your community. Once again, one less headache, okay? Number 5, ethnic, race, nationality, and gender, okay? In my examples of those micro lenders, there's Michigan Women Forward. Remember I mentioned they lend to women entrepreneurs. If you're a man, do you apply for funding from this organization? You can, because they will lend to a few men, but their focus are on women. What about Access? Remember I mentioned Access, they lend to immigrants. So if you're not an immigrant, do you apply for that loan? No, you don't. It'd be a waste of your time applying for that loan or trying to get information because you already know that they only lend to immigrants. Now, a lot of these lenders have their qualifications and criteria for the loans on their website. So a lot of it, you can do some pre-planning by going to all these websites and taking notes before you call and schedule an appointment. So you can eliminate some of them just by doing the research before you even contact them. Once again, saving time, saving headache, and making this as seamless of a process as possible for you to apply for capital. Number 6, collateral or not? That's a big question there. What's collateral? For those of you who don't know what collateral is. So you apply for funding, you apply for 100,000. The lender's gonna come back to you and say, okay, you know, your credit looks good, so maybe we'll give you 100,000. But in order for us to give you 100,000, we need you to put up something that we can put a lien on to protect ourselves if you don't pay us back. So, you know, how much equity you got in that house? You got $100,000 worth of equity in that house? You can put a lien on that house. That might be a criteria for you to get the loan, to close on the loan, is that you have to have collateral. So if you go out there and you apply for a loan and you get approved, it's a perfect fit, it's exactly what you need, but you don't have collateral, is it a smart move to move forward? If you don't, and they cannot get, if they get asked for different scenarios, like someone asked a question about, was it 401ks or something, that's collateral. If they say, hey, we don't take 401ks, okay, we can't put a lien on that. then guess what? You might not want to go with that lender. You might have to look at another lender. So collateral could be a deal changer. I want to talk a little bit about microloans because I didn't get into detail. I didn't put a slide, but I want to talk a little bit more about microloans. Microloans are loans that are $50,000 or less. Typically, it's a nonprofit that lends the money. They have very flexible underwriting criteria, meaning that you can have bruises on your credit and you can still be approved. Why is that important? Well, if you have bruises on your credit, that does not mean that you cannot get that loan. They're funded by the philanthropic community. They're actually also funded by banks. Their goal is to provide access to capital to those who traditionally have not had access to capital. So a lot of micro lenders, they are, and I use this and I'll explain it to you, they are banks are credit score driven, micro lenders are credit driven. You say, well, sounds like that's the same thing. Not really. Banks will typically tell you that you need a 740 FICO score. If you have 739, you're not going to be approved right out the gate, okay? Whereas a micro lender, we don't care too much about the credit score, but let's take a look at your credit. Maybe you can provide a explanation as to what caused these bruises on your credit, like the pandemic, like a divorce, loss of job. There are many things that they give you a chance to explain. And if you satisfactorily explain why you have those bruises, they move on because now they want to see, now what are your plans for your business in the community? Let's see if we can get behind you and help you get your business open. And one of the biggest things that they like to see is that you're going to open up your business, not to become a millionaire. You're going to open up your business. Ultimately, I hope you can become one. But what they want to hear is that, hey, I want to open up a business in a neighborhood where I can hire people from the community. I can hire the returning citizens. I can hire the seniors or youth or individuals with disability, because that's impactful. When we talk about large corporations, they typically like to go to the downtown areas. They don't go into our neighborhoods and open up businesses. But you, the entrepreneurs, are willing to go into the neighborhoods because maybe you grew up in those neighborhoods, maybe you just committed to the neighborhood, but you're going to impact the neighborhood. You opening up a business is bigger than just you opening that business. It affects everybody around you. So micro lenders, they see that, they say, if you provide a great business plan and you thoroughly explain the impact you're going to have, despite those bruises on your credit, you still might get approved. So that's why I love microloans. Let's keep going. Number 7, percentage of personal equity. I talked about that earlier, so I really don't have to go too much into it. Are you putting 5% of what you need for your business to open into the deal? Are you putting 10%? Are you putting 15%? You have to have skin in the game, meaning that you have to have money on the table. Number 8, this is a big one. Business plan, required or not? Well, my response to that is you should always have a business plan. Now, hey, I'm not gonna lie, I started my consulting business without a business plan, but guess what? I've learned a lot since then. You need a business plan. A business plan is a roadmap for your business. You should have a business plan. Now, do the lenders require a business plan? 99% of them do require a business plan. All those lenders that I went over in the beginning all require a business plan except for CIBC Bank. They don't require a business plan. That's the one exception, okay? For that, remember, they offer the line of credit. But lenders want to see a business plan because guess what? They want to see what your roadmap is. What do you plan on doing with this business? What are your financial projections? Are your financial projections realistic? Are you dreaming? Everybody say that, hey, I'm gonna make $1 million with this business. But is that a reality? Is the type of business you want to open in the community, will it generate that type of business? We don't know until you put it into black and white. I tell people they can't read your mind. So take what's in your mind, put it in black and white in the business plan. Now people can view it. Now, one last piece of advice about business plan. Treat a business plan like a resume. You're selling yourself. How you plan or how you vision you're going to operate your business, you need to communicate through that business plan just like it's in your head. The perfect example is a resume. When you do your resume, you're selling yourself, okay? Now, when you're selling yourself, you selling yourself madly through that resume, because you know when you upload it, because nowadays you can't mail stuff in. Some places do allow you to email it, but when you upload that resume on the site for a job, you're making sure that resume is saying to that person on the other end, hire me because I meet this qualification, I have this education, I have this experience. You're selling yourself. It's the same way with a business plan. And what I mean by that is the person that you're going to interact with at the lending organization is typically a loan officer. That loan officer might love you to death. But guess what? There's going to be an underwriter and or potentially a loan committee to look at your business plan with everything in your packet. They don't know you. They have no idea who you are. They have not built a relationship with you like that loan officer has. So that business plan is your way of communicating to that underwriter or that loan committee by making sure you communicate clearly and concisely what you're trying to achieve. And if you have bruises on your credit, okay, put a letter of explanation in there. If you know there are some things that might come up in your personal history that you feel might be a barrier to you getting a loan, put it in black and white. You're building trust with these lenders. You have to put it on the table. If you've had a conviction before, or you filed bankruptcy, or you lost a business, this here, you got to put it on the table, because that loan officer is going to advocate for you. And the last thing you want to do is blindside that loan officer who's trying to get your loan approved because you did not tell them what they needed to know to make sure they were not blindsided by some things from your past. Trust me, they're going to find out. I've seen deals where someone did not put everything on the table, blindsided that loan officer, lost the trust, didn't get that loan. But if you're honest and you let them know, you prep them, and you talk about your situation so they can talk about it for you and advocate for you, I've seen people get over that hump. Very important. Yeah, I saw a question come up. I thought I saw a question. Kevin, is he still on?
I'm still on. Hold on 1 second, please.
Okay. Is everyone understanding what I'm saying here with these steps here? I want to make sure this is the most important. You can unmute and say yay and nay. Is this good information or not?
It's great information.
Got it. Thank you. Was there a question, Kevin?
Question, how does one deal with rejection? Do you apply many loans at once or one at a time?
Literally one at a time. But here's the thing. This is why I put this strategy together. If you follow these 14 steps, and I still have a few more to go, if you follow these steps, you might see 10 different lenders on that list that you can apply for funding. But once you go through these steps, you might be down to 2 or 3. At that time, it's okay to simultaneously apply for funding from the 4 that you feel are a fit for you based on this criteria. But keep in mind, let the other lenders know that you're applying to multiple places. It's okay. That's being upfront and honest and no one is surprised. So you can apply one at a time, or you can apply from all at the same time. Just tell all the lenders about the other lenders that you're applying for. But once again, I don't want you to do a crapshoot and just apply. You're going to apply these 14 steps, and you're going to narrow down to the lenders that are the best fit for you. And then you're going to apply. What you want to do it one at a time or do them all at the same time. Just let each of them know that you're applying to multiple lenders, that you're doing a capital stacking type deal. Okay. Do not play crap and say, well, I'm just going to apply to multiple lenders and whoever approves, I'm going to go with. Well, that goes totally against what I'm trying to teach you. I'm teaching you a strategy that puts you in the best position to be approved, the best position to get a yes declination on that loan. Even if you have issues, you put yourself in the best position by following these steps to get that yes and get the funding that you need for your business. Let's go to number 9. So remember I talked about the situation where the business owner didn't ask about when the first payment is due, and they opened up their business. They start making payments on their business before my computer is going dead. Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
I need you to pull up the presentation in case my computer goes out, okay?
Okay.
So remember I talked about that scenario. So what they should have asked, that business owner should have asked is, okay, I don't want to make my payments within 30 days. I can't because my business is not open. I don't have any revenue. Okay. So your next question is, okay, do you offer a grace period? Do you offer where I make my first loan payment 2 months after I open up my doors? And there are a lot of lenders say, yeah, we're not going to actually make any payments when you don't have revenue coming in. So when you open up your doors in 3 months, that's when you make your first payment. But then they also could say, you know what, we'll do even better. In 3 months, when you open your doors, we'll have you make interest-only payments. Now, those interest-only payments might be really small and minute, okay? And then after about 3 months of paying interest-only payments, then we have you pay principal and interest. Or a lender might say, well, during the build-out period, 2 to 3 months, you make interest-only payments, which are very small payments. And then when you open up, we give you another 3 months of interest-only payments before you make principal and interest payments. So these are the questions you have to ask. You want to put yourself in the best position to begin to pay back these loans instead of just getting money just because you're approved and then, bam, you're stuck paying on debt with no revenue coming in. Somebody asked a question, I think. I just saw them. Was there another question? In the meantime,
Yeah, I got a question, Brother
okay.
Galloway. I'll wait till you finish with the slides because it's really good information.
Got it. Number 10, working capital. I talked about that earlier. When you open your doors, unless you got a lot of money sitting in the bank, it's going to take a little while for your revenue to exceed your revenue to exceed your expenses. Okay, so you're gonna have a shortfall. You got to pay your employees, you got to pay your utilities, you got to pay your loan back. So you ask for working capital. Working capital is typically a line of credit that you could tap into to cover your expenses until your revenue exceeds your expenses, and then your business becomes self-sufficient. So don't forget about working capital. We talked about number 11, capital stacking in the very beginning. That's where you have multiple lending sources at the table helping you fund your capital need. You might have 2 or 3 lenders at the table to support your $300,000 need. Number 12, credit criteria. What is your criteria for me to get the loan? Okay, can I have bruises on my credit? Just to let you know, you can have perfect credit and still not be approved by a bank, because them approving you for a loan is not solely based up on credit. It's also they're looking at other things, okay? The type of business, how much equity you pull into the business. They look at things like that as well. You could be turned down for a business loan at a bank with excellent credit, with 800 FICO score. So what you find is because micro lenders and community lenders have flexible underwriting criteria, people with excellent credit still go with micro lenders and community lenders. And there was a question that was asked earlier, and I want to answer that right now. The interest rate. Oh no, I'm gonna say the interest rate for last, number 14. 13, you don't think about this. 13 and 14 actually go together. Notice interest rate is the last one. Okay, most of you, when you start looking at loans, what's the first thing you want to know? What's the interest rate? Because somebody asked that question already. That's the first thing my computer